Welcome to Garden Views. Interesting conversations with interesting people who have done and/or are doing interesting things. So sit back and enjoy.
Welcome everybody to Garden Views, and this week we have a special treat. I know I say that every week, but we've had professors, we've had generals, we've had journalists, we've had authors, best-selling authors, and all, from New York Times onwards. We've had Hollywood producers, but I think this is our first ambassador. So we are welcoming in today Ambassador Aaron. He is from the Commonwealth of Dominica. He has been the ambassador from the Commonwealth to Venezuela, and he is now currently the ambassador to the United States. So, Ambassador Aaron, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, Jeff, it's my pleasure. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
No, we're thrilled to have you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, your 401, I guess, where you were raised, educated, how you got into the diplomatic corps, et cetera, because I'm sure that's an interesting story, regardless of whatever country or Commonwealth anyone is from. I'd love to hear about it.
Happy to do that. Well, I came into the diplomatic corps through academics. I'm a PhD, former professor. I was a professor at the time at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and I had the good fortune of having taught while I was teaching at high school level, having taught a gentleman who became the Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And he reached back and offered me a position in his administration. I had always been interested in politics. Actually, he knew me as such, as being interested in politics as a high school teacher. Interestingly, too, for him, he was already interested in politics. He became head of the student government at the Dominica Grammar School. And so he invited me over. And so during that time, I spent 10 years in his administration, being ambassador of the Commonwealth of Dominica to Venezuela. And I deepened my study, having much more access to a leader, prime minister of a Caribbean country, and deepened my academic studies of political leadership in our region. And so having done that, took a break for 5 years. I was ambassador to Venezuela from 2008 to 2018. And I have been recently appointed ambassador of Dominica to the United Nations.
Okay, that's great. I mean, in a little bit of small world, I'm in the Baltimore area also, so I did not know that you had went to Coppin State, but that's sort of my hometown. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, I taught at Coppin, but I went down. I did my PhD in education policy at the Great School of Education in the University of Maryland at College Park.
Okay, very good. Well, now you're getting a little bit colder, but I did my graduate degree at the University of Maryland here in Baltimore, so we were passing.
Absolutely.
On
I was there in West Boston.
I guess on I-95 instead of 295, because I-95 gets you right into College Park. Anyway, for those people who are not in the Maryland-Baltimore corridor, you don't care about the which roads we take. It's like that Saturday Night Live skit, The Californians, So, obviously, I think the folks can tell we're going to talk a little bit about geopolitics and things of that nature today. We have done that in a variety of different arenas here on the show. This is probably our first foray into getting into a specific geographic area, knowing what we're doing going into it. Now, Professor DeGennaro comes on and she tells us 3 or 6 things we need to know, but she sort of surprises me with the topics. And we've been pursuing the laws of space, and if time allows, I will ask about what your Commonwealth's position is on space and and the region writ large. Though I would imagine on sort of the list of priorities that may be a little bit low down at the moment.
You are absolutely right.
All right. So
more earthbound.
Exactly, and probably with good reason. So A few years ago, which is probably closer to 12, 15 years ago, I was on Amtrak, and because of a friend of mine who always schmoozed the Amtrak people, we always got upgraded into first class. And we were on the Acela coming back from New York to Baltimore, and a bunch of gentlemen with security came, and they sort of looked like Secret Service, but they weren't Secret Service. You could just sort of tell they were a little bit looser, they were a little friendlier. They would hold the door for people behind them. It seemed like the Anyway. It turns out they were diplomatic security, and this was the Pakistani delegation. And two things came of interest. That one, I learned that not every country has an ambassador for their State Department and to the UN and to the IMF and to the World Health Organization. Basically, these ambassadors, they were the ambassadorial corps for all international agencies in the United States, and they would do 6 weeks here and 3 weeks there and then a week here, and they would just do the rotation, which I thought was interesting, and I'll ask you about the Commonwealth on that as well. And then I asked them, this was during the, it was in the decade after 9/11 and the Iraq, war. And I asked them, aside from that, what was their biggest, concerns with regarding the United States? And they indicated that without hesitation, there were 8 of them. They basically all in unison said, we wish the United States would pay more attention to global warming. Global warming was still the term used. It wasn't climate change yet. So I will ask you, how is your diplomatic corps set up there? And let's start with that one.
Yeah, we have a small, as you might imagine, a small country, small diplomatic corps. And we, for example, have three personnel, at that mission. But we have missions in Washington D.C., in Europe, some in the Middle East. It was relatively small delegation. When I flipped through the UN Blue Book, the largest delegation by pages is the United States. I think it's a couple dozen pages, and my country's delegation is a half page. But that's how we're organized. We're very focused on very practical matters and very direct matters that have a very direct bearing on our well-being. We are generally interested in a lot. Most Caribbean countries, through our history, especially those with a British history like we do, we have a history of really paying attention to what's going on in the world, listening to the BBC, that British Broadcasting Service that covers the whole world, as well as now with television. So we have a great interest in so many things from all over the world. But diplomatic service, we are very focused. Generally in government, we are very focused on particular things of particular interest to us. That's how we do it.
Do you think the United States, it's a little bit overkill with that many in the diplomatic corps? Do you think it's like too much redundancy or too much overlapping, or or would we benefit from it being more streamlined, or would you, as a diplomat, would you rather not opine on another country's sort of decisions?
I would take the decision to opine in a friendly way and say, I trust the great wisdom of the great United States in these matters.
That might be too kind. I'm not, listen, I love being in the United States. I don't know if there's another country I'd be in. I do say I don't know because I don't know. As much as people complain about wherever they are, I always take a moment, I try to anyway, and try to think to myself, compared to what? Compared to where? And so, I'm not sure that there's not a better place, that another nation somewhere on balance, but I'm not aware of it. In any event, my jingoism aside, what are some of the major priorities that a nation such as yours would have, and do you think that that's representative of the Caribbean region, or I'm sure there's some similarities, but there are some things that are probably of particular interest to Dominica?
I think Dominica is not. Well, I'm sure of it. I've expressed express policy is that our major interest is in finance. So that's the predominant interest of the country. That is generally the case with the Eastern Caribbean as well as the wider Caribbean. So it's a developing region, and so that makes sense that the countries of the region, their focus is on especially economic development, political development, social development also. But one of the urgent priorities is economic development. And for that reason, finance, funding of various types, especially when possible grants, when possible low interest loans, that is the primary interest of the region.
Okay.
My also.
Yeah, when you first said finance, I thought more like Switzerland, Grand Cayman, Seychelles, becoming a hub for banking. But it sounds like more about having financial investment in your infrastructure, in your business, in more finance that your nation can benefit from and use for its development. So, is that correct?
That's correct. And but I'm happy you mentioned at least one Caribbean. It's not a full independent nation, but you mentioned the Cayman Islands. There are other similar centers. So generally, compared to their size, many of the countries of the Caribbean have a greater participation than you would expect in world financial markets and in other, and various types of financial transactions, financial dealings. That's true.
How large is your country's square mileage and population?
It's about 300 square miles. It's 285, but that's around 300 square miles. The population is 70,000. When I say 70,000, most people hear something else. Many people hear 70,700,000, but it's 4 zeros. It's 70,000. Many people translate that into the capacity of some stadium, whether it's the football stadium, for a college. At least a couple of colleges in the Carolinas have stadiums that can hold 70,000 people.
Oh yeah, you go to SEC country for sure.
That's right. So some people call it, a village state. Some people call we have an island state. But there's, of course, a great tradition with small populations doing democracy. And that is one of the things that we can boast of, that generally our countries in the Caribbean, where they're democratic, are a very close, I may say, approximation to the idea of democracy as originally thought of. Of course, we know that the classical Greek Roman city-states are where at least Western democracy began. So we're close to that in the sense that we have just a few thousand people per representative. And what that means is we know our representative very intimately. We know his family, her family. They know us also very intimately. So we do democracy that way, very closely. Is not quite getting into the arena and everybody deciding on the law, but it's very close to that. So it's very close to a direct form of democracy. And I think other countries have a good reason to be jealous of how close our political leaders are to the people they lead, thanks to our small size and our culture.
Sure, of course. You have to be representative when your representative knows all of the people they represent. Yeah, that's something that we've sort of lost here in the U.S.
Absolutely. So representation takes on a totally different meaning when you represent a few thousand people and when you represent millions of people. It's completely different. It's a completely different kind of thing.
For sure. There's not too many places to run and hide when you have 285 square miles. Now,
especially that.
What would that translate to size-wise that somebody from the U.S. could relate to? Is it the size of is that like Maryland? Is it the size of Rhode Island? Is it the size of Manhattan? Is it the size of South Carolina?
If I were to pick I would go closer to the island of Manhattan.
Okay.
That many people forget is an island.
Mm-hmm.
But I would go closer to that. We're so small in scale that cities and blocks in terms of space are closer to what we are than anything else. So even the smallest states of this union are larger than our states.
So agriculture really could not be a mainstay industry for your country.
You'll be surprised. Because it is, and we have a long history of agricultural enterprise. As a matter of fact, these great United States, especially the eastern coast, those early colonies of Great Britain, many of them were settled from the Caribbean. And so in cities like Charleston, South Carolina, you could focus on a piece of architecture, for example, windows on a historic building, and think you were in Barbados, or any other, Eastern Caribbean and generally Caribbean capital, because the Europeans in general, and specifically the British in this case, came through the Caribbean, set up communities, set up colonies there, and generally moved to the United States and the sea coast, the eastern coast, from there. And that's why there's a great cultural tradition exchange of people from that region, the Caribbean, the Hamiltons and others, up to the present time.
That Hamilton?
Hamilton was from this tiny little island close to Dominica, relatively close to Dominica.
Okay, I'm probably the only person who didn't see the play.
So there was a great exchange of personnel, and so George Washington visited Barbados. His brother, one of his brothers at least, frequented and liked and lived in and ran a newspaper in Antigua. And so there was a great amount of exchange from the Caribbean to the United States, the early United States. Of course, it continues, but there's that great commonality. And our agriculture, a certain type of agriculture, started there. Dominica was never a very well-established plantation economy. Well, of course, you would know with the great plantations in the rest of the Caribbean. We did, generally tobacco, sugarcane, a number of things. We did banana in Dominica. Before that, we did the best limes in the world. There was a time when limes were very important, especially in naval business.
Scurvy.
The British were, yes, exactly. So at one time, we were the best preventers of scurvy when it mattered.
Yeah.
So
and you have to put some flavor in that watered down grog.
So exactly, that's what. So all of those islands, including mine, have a great history of various types of agriculture, whether it's intensive, doing tobacco, very hands-on, or more extensive in some of the larger countries. But we have a great tradition of agriculture.
I assume that tourism is something that would be a large part of your economy, or at least something that you would like to make a large part of your economy. I guess, which is it?
Absolutely. So that's the case. So the Commonwealth of Dominica is not the greatest or best known tourism destination. But we are, and we're in of course, the Caribbean as a whole has the greatest economic dependence on tourism of any region in the world. So the Caribbean depends more on tourism than any other region in the world. Tourism is big there. Dominica, we're making, we have a special niche because we are one of the most rugged countries in the world. We've got a ton of volcanoes, active volcanoes. We have the second largest boiling lake in the world. We have 365 rivers. And so what we have is nature tourism. And we also have something that's rare, that's black sand beaches.
Ooh.
And not everybody wants to go on a black sand beach. Most people are, addicted to white sand beaches. But we do have a great product, lots of activity, lots of nature to watch or to participate in. Birding is big. Diving, we have the second best dive destination in the world after the Great Barrier Reef of Australia.
What's the capital?
It's a French name, Roseau. So Roseau is the capital. That's the name of a reed. This little thin grass-like, actually it's a grass with a hollow. So that is the name of the town. Roseau is the capital. It used to be. We were once occupied by the French, and that's the reason why we have French names. We share a lot with Louisiana, especially New Orleans. A lot of the Eastern Caribbean do. Number of prominent families in New Orleans also can trace back some of the roots to the region. But that's our Roseau. We share that tradition with Louisiana and generally the French regions of North America.
Does the name share any relationship to the Dominican Republic? It is the same. Is it like the Dominican Catholics got there first?
That's right. It's the same origin. We are the Commonwealth of Dominica, just to distinguish it from the Republic, the Dominican Republic. We are also a republic, but by legal status, by political structure. But ours is to distinguish it. We call it the Commonwealth of Dominica. It also hints at the fact that our origin is from British colonization. Right. But the similarity, you're right, is the Catholic and Spanish language history. So ours is named Dominica because it was discovered on a Sunday by the gentleman that nobody wants to admit anymore that he discovered, because they were indigenous people before him. But the gentleman Columbus, he stumbled upon Dominica on a Sunday, and that's the reason why he called it Dominica. Yeah, it's because of Domingo.
Yeah, right, Domingo, sure, of course.
Yeah, and so that's why we're Dominica. And
we can say he discovered it for Europeans. I mean, obviously,
which is an interesting, doing geopolitics. This is an interesting formulation. Yes. But I must plug in that Dominica is still home to the last. It's not a joyful thing, but Dominica is home to the last surviving indigenous people of the island. So the island indigenous people have largely been wiped out, but on Dominica there is a thriving population of the Kalinago, who are the very people who welcomed and hosted Columbus and subsequent groups of Europeans when they came to Dominica.
Yeah, but they regret that. But what's the name of the people again?
Kalinago. They have had various names, especially names that have been corrupted by Europeans, corrupted by pronunciation. Mm-hmm. And a few years ago, they determined for themselves that the closest, or the name that they have given to themselves in the past was Kalinago. So that's Kalinago. So the Kalinago people, they used to be called the Carib people.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, they used to be called the Carib people. They've chosen to call themselves the Kalinago. So they live in Dominica. They have been in Dominica for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. Well, my source being James Michener, tells me that the Arawak people were there first, and the Caribs actually chased them out. But I don't know.
That's received the history. Yes.
That's received.
And of course, James Michener has done great writing about the Caribbean. They've done a lot of research about the Caribbean. But that's right. They all came from the north. They actually started in Asia. They originated from Asia, China, Siberia, what is now Russia, and came through what is now Alaska, came through North America, went through South America, and were on their way back up through the islands to come to Florida or what is now Florida, when they were intercepted by the Europeans. So the Europeans, Columbus and the subsequent his successors, stopped the great movement of the indigenous people throughout North and South, Central and South America.
Well, that was a quick encapsulation of about 20,000 years.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. If you were trying to entice or induce like cruise ships to come, or you want, I don't know, Marriott or Sandals or whomever to invest, like I'm sure that, I mean, are you part of that delegation? Are you part of that committee? Or is that, I guess with a country of 70,000, your government can't be that big. So I imagine a lot of people have to pull together. But what is the approach to getting new investment, whatever it is? I mean, I assume the tourism is the easy sell, but there's probably other things that you would like to do other than, serve rum runners.
Yeah, I'll start with the tourism, thrust that you mentioned. My prime minister, by the way, his name is Roosevelt Skerrit. At one point, he was the youngest prime minister in the world. So Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit, very hands-on, leads his government very, very directly and practically. So there is also, of course, the agency that is responsible for that kind of tourism work is called Discover Dominica. Yes, there is new interest in Dominica, by the large hotels. Cruise ships have been coming to. Again, they would dock at Roseau. By the way, I'm from a southern, northern town, a town in the north with a very British name, which is Portsmouth, whereas the capital is Roseau, French. In the south, in the north, there's a really large bay and a town behind it called Portsmouth, like Portsmouth in the northern U.S. And it's a large port town, very attractive also to ships and to tourists. But the other things that we are especially interested in these days is geothermal energy. So we pull energy. At least we're in the process of pulling that out from the heat that's within our country, because like I said before, we have more active volcanoes per square mile than any other place on Earth. We have numerous of those features. So we have hot water lakes, we have hot water springs. Hot water pops up under your feet while you're at the beach in many places, especially in the north. There is an amazing feature, volcanic feature in the south called Champagne, because hot air is pushing out from under the seabed, and pushing out through the water, and it creates this amazing feature that looks like champagne.
Carbonation effect.
So we do. So we do that. We're pulling out geothermal energy. We do agriculture. We do tourism. So that's where our focus is.
Can you export the geothermal energy?
It can be exported. Very expensive venture.
Okay.
A couple of my friends, actually, the Minister for Energy, is a good friend of mine. Actually, he's also the Foreign Minister, Dr. Vince Anderson. He used to be Dominica's ambassador to the U.S. and to the UN, and other friends of mine, are also working on such things. Yes, it can be exported. And the country is in discussion with our neighbors to service them with those. We are in between two French territories. You can call them territories, but they are also departments. They are formerly part of France, French Republic. So to our south is Martinique. We can see it from the south of our island. And to the north is Guadeloupe and some other French dependencies. But to the north is Guadeloupe, and you can see it from Dominica, and so they're part of France. And so, yes, we have been in discussions, and there's a lot of prospecting, a lot of studies on how to export this energy to neighboring countries. But yes, it can
Do you have a lot of researchers there? I mean, if there's energy companies there, do they also have to have volcanists or to worry about earthquakes and volcanoes? I mean, you've got hurricanes, but I mean, all the volcanoes. It sounds lovely until one erupts, and then it's we just when I'm recording this is just a week after Lahaina. I mean, you must spend a lot of time on emergency preparedness and evacuation protocols.
You're absolutely right, and what you just said, really implies the truth, which is we are one of the highest physical vulnerability in the world. So we have the risk of um, waves from volcanic activities, from earthquake activity. So we have hurricanes, risk of. We have earthquakes. We have volcanoes. We have tidal waves as a result of those activities. At least the risk of that. So we have a high physical vulnerability. And you're right. There's a lot of emphasis on being safe, on understanding what's going on with those volcanoes, those boiling lakes, and so forth. Yes, that's part of our everyday life.
All right. I would love to ask you about things like pirates and all sorts of domestic things, but I have an ambassador here to the United Nations. So what are some of your country's concerns internationally? What are your focuses, and what do you spend most of your time working on, especially when you're in the in New York at the United Nations and representing your country for on behalf of at the United Nations?
Right. I'll quickly tell you that parts of the Pirates of the Caribbean, especially I think it's Pirates 4, I think Dead Man's Chest, was filmed in Dominica, by the way.
All right.
For anybody watching that, and you see Johnny Depp run from white sand beach to black sand beach, it's not the same country. He starts off, I think, in Bahamas and ends up on Dominica, and and also scenes where you see him being flipped over from this huge skewer, or when he's being skewered, right? Like he's being barbecued.
Right.
These were shot on location in the Commonwealth of Dominica.
Is that the scene where like he's arguing with little versions of himself?
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. And also that witch scene in the swamp, in the in the bayou,
Mm-hmm.
those wetlands. That is my hometown of Portsmouth. That's the
Oh,
Indian River.
okay.
So, you brought it up.
I did.
We have a genuine history of pirates.
Oh, I figured. I would love to talk to you about pirates, but I have an ambassador to the United Nations here, and I feel like talking about pirates and witches and how Pirates of the Caribbean tried to think that it was the Odyssey, and sort of lost its way there is probably not the conversation I should be having with you in your valuable time. I mean, I figured we'd be talking about climate change and human and drug trafficking and things like that.
Yes. I'll put on my ambassador hat and a serious face and tell you, yes, we are.
Listen, I have another show called Garden of Doom. I would love to talk to you about pirates and all things that are, weird and wonderful out there in the world, mythology, local legends, anytime. But I think for Garden Views, I think we should probably stick to the ambassador stuff.
Absolutely. So we're very concerned about climate change. Actually, the Prime Minister of Dominica has been recognized for his interest in climate change. And here's a very, very interesting reason why. We're the only country that has suffered from a Category 5 hurricane twice in one generation.
Wow.
So in 1979, 75% of our housing was just absolutely demolished by Hurricane David, Category 5. And then again in 2017, we were again visited by a Category 5 hurricane, Hurricane Maria. So that, of course, did tremendous damage, tremendous loss of life. And as a result, one of our very important interests is climate change in various actions related to climate change. But that is a very big interest for us. We are also very interested in the world remaining a peaceful place. We are very interested in our development, and we understand that if we continue to live harmoniously, throughout the world, this gives countries like ours a better chance to develop, especially economically. We're interested in those matters. We're interested in peace, especially in our region and the world. And we are interested in equality, especially in economics, especially in access to resources, for health, education, and so forth. These are strong interests of the Commonwealth of Dominica, both for domestically as well as for international. Those are very big interests for us.
This is a bit sensitive, but it can't be news to you. In a country of 70,000 people, even if 1% of your country is dedicated to military and law enforcement, that's 700 people. So if it's 3%, say, that's 2,100, covering basically the island of Manhattan. So do you have a separate military and police force? Is it one force? And it's sort of in the drug trafficking region. There's a lot of immigration and people looking for other routes other than overland through Mexico. Do you have problems with that, or are you small enough that it really isn't an issue?
We're interesting in that way. We don't have a military. And that is a typical feature of especially the Eastern Caribbean countries, that we don't have a military. In Dominica, we used to have a small defense force, and that was disbanded in 1981. So we don't have a military. And so what we do have is we have a police force, but we make arrangements with other countries of the Eastern Caribbean for that troops. They're called troops, but they're not formal soldiers. They're usually from various police forces. That they could be mobilized when needed to do duty in any one of the countries, including Dominica. But the idea of a republic without a military is a very interesting form of a republic. We do have security concerns. When I was ambassador to Venezuela, my counterparts would always try to wrap their head around that. How do we do defense? Who do I speak to for defense? So that's very interesting. But we do have national security concerns. We don't have a standing military. We make arrangements with our friends, both our friends, close neighbors, islands, as well as understanding with larger powers for our external military security.
Now, I am a child of the 70s and the 80s, so growing up, the military power in the Caribbean was Cuba. Whether they still are or not, I know not. I know the Dominican Republic has a fairly significant military. I know that they often have to secure their own border, because they share an island with Haiti, which is, in worse shape than the Dominican Republic. Who are the other powers in the region that you can depend? It would seem that Mexico would be the closest, or maybe Colombia, that could lend themselves, but those are obviously not. I listened to your words. You said the island nations, and neither one of those is an island nation. So who are we talking about in this? I'm just going to call it a confederacy because I don't know of a better word, of a coalition that for this mutual defense.
Yes, and by the way, listeners from the Caribbean, when they hear the Confederacy, they're going to shudder, by the way.
I withdraw the word. I accept any substitution of a better word you choose.
Yes. So, actually, we have various forms of unions, various forms of regional integration. To answer your question, there more now than 20 years ago, there are regional powers with much more influence. So Cuba, as you mentioned, Cuba used to be contained very much so during the Cold War. So Cuba now is not as contained as it used to be. And as a result, Cuba has diplomatic postings, missions in, I would say, almost every independent country. And so in the region. So Cuba has a lot of diplomatic relations now. That wasn't the case until the fall of the Soviet Union. But the other regional powers include Colombia, and they're also considered Caribbean countries, though not islands. but parts of them at least touch the Caribbean Sea.
Mhm.
And so Venezuela has done also great diplomatic outreach to the region. Venezuela also has an embassy in every independent country of the region. So Venezuela has done great diplomatic work there too. Mexico has done great outreach. So the regional influences are from Mexico, also, as I mentioned, Colombia, Venezuela. However, the large islands of Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados are also influential in the region, especially because in times of a special, hurricane, like in Hurricane Maria, for Hurricane Maria, we were wiped out. Our ports, our airports, I mean, because of our size, a large hurricane does not only do intense damage, but it does extensive damage from north to south. So for a few days, you are absolutely in need of air service, ships, and so forth. And thanks to Barbados, especially, which is much closer than Trinidad and the others, and eventually Trinidad, Jamaica, and the others came to. So the larger islands are also influential materially, but also influence culturally too. We pay attention to what's going on with those leaders. We know their leaders by not just in the diplomatic corps, the average Dominican citizen, and that's the case throughout the Eastern Caribbean and the Caribbean. The average Dominican citizen can pass the test on who is the Prime Minister of Barbados, who is the Prime Minister of Jamaica, who is the Prime Minister of Trinidad, and so forth. And so that is, it also shows the influence of those countries throughout the Caribbean and Dominica too.
Well, let's talk about the 800-pound pink elephant to your north, which would be us, the United States.
Yes.
Does the United States help? Does the United States Navy or Coast Guard have any, render any assistance? Or is that something that, and if they do they, how do they work with Cuba? Because technically we don't talk to each other. What's the situation with the United States?
We're great friends of the United States, and that's just not diplomatic flourish. We are great friends of the United States.
Are we great friends of yours? Are we great friends of yours and great neighbors of yours?
Yes, okay. yes, you are. So and the relationship, the manifestation of the relationship, varies there. Like I said earlier, we've had long established relationships, cultural and otherwise, with the United States. One of the ships that started, I think it's St. Augustine in Florida, one of the earliest settlements in the United States, stopped, got water from Dominica before going on to the United States. We've had long relationships during some of the wars. I think it's the War of Independence. Dominica took on refugees, thousands of refugees in the capital, Rosa. And today we still have great relationships. We do share security concerns. So the United States and Dominica share security operations generally. We have great contact. But what we especially have is human contact. One, through tourism. A number of American tourists visit the Commonwealth of Dominica. So some level of economic exchange, economic integration. There is great interaction between the diplomatic corps of Dominica and the United States. I personally have met with and discussed a fairly decent relationship with the U.S. ambassador. She's still in Barbados. That's Barbados and Eastern Caribbean. Ambassador Talia Taylor. And but the human relations are great. Specifically, there are thousands of Dominican citizens living in the United States, especially concentrated on the East Coast, in New York, in Miami, and in other cities. We recognize that as a great form of exchange with the United States, and we consider those things as part of our relationship with the United States. So we do have great relations with the United States.
Well, as great as we are as neighbors and friends, what could we do better?
The United States. Uh, I would be very conservative here and 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 go diplomatic and not appear to reproach the United States on anything. Um, so I would do that. I'd
Okay.
go conservative now and say, we cherish the relationships we have. Of course, relationships can always be improved. They can be widened, they can be deepened, and my country, I'm sure, is interested in that. The United States, I know, is also interested in that. But I'll do that. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That's fine. You're actually an ambassador right now. It could put you in an awkward position. What is your country's position usually? And again, I don't want to put you in a different kind of awkward position.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it if it comes up. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So, I mean, there's obviously some things going on in the world so in sort of both of our neck of the woods, in Ecuador, there was a lot of political unrest. One candidate was assassinated. Another candidate was threatened with assassination. On the other side of the world, but it affects everybody. There's a land war in Europe. I mean, do you does your country get involved in things like that? Do you try to broker? Do you try to take any sort of role in those, or are those just things that just like, you know what, that's just not something we deal with? We focus on the Caribbean. We focus on trying to make things better for ourselves. Or there's some things like when Russia invades Ukraine that you're like, this could turn into World War III. It doesn't affect us today, but it might tomorrow. I mean, I know I asked a lot in one paragraph there.
We do get involved. We do get involved. So, for example, the head of state of the Commonwealth of Dominica, that's not the prime minister. So we have a different system.
Mm-hmm.
In the United States, the president is the head of state, head of government. In the Westminster system that we have, just like in England, there is a head of state. In England, it's the sovereign, it's king or queen. In Dominica, it's a president, and the president of the Commonwealth of Dominica hosted the ambassador of Russia recently and exchanged views with the ambassador of Russia about his concerns on behalf of Dominica over the invasion of Ukraine. Now, also the Prime Minister of Dominica, who is the political head, the head of government, has also voiced on those. So the short answer is yes, we do pay attention to all these matters. Some of these countries we have diplomatic relations with. We have diplomatic relations with Russia, for example. And so we do participate, we do discuss, we are called on to support one position or another, various forms, and we make those decisions. So the answer is yes. And for example, Ecuador, I worked in Ecuador. I was while being ambassador to Venezuela a few years ago. I was also accredited to Ecuador, and so I have worked in Ecuador. I have the current leaders I have not worked with, but previous leaders, and I have worked with, and I understand Ecuador fairly well. And as a matter of fact, during an earlier period of political instability, I participated with others in seeking a solution. Did that in other countries. A few years ago in Honduras, a leader, I was accredited at the time to Honduras, a leader was deposed. He was removed by force from power and was taken by force to another country. I had the honor of participating in discussions, not only to settle things down, but to attempt to bring to restore democratic order. So yes, we do get involved. We try to do it in the context of cooperation with other countries. And as you might imagine, not having a military, what it does for us is it emphasizes our soft power, our ability to make friends, speak with friends, and to exercise influence that's of a different nature than those countries that have supreme and large military power. So that's one of the corners that we occupy.
Try to be an honest broker towards mediation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our prime minister in the past has mediated between and has been a go between bringing when there was much higher tension between the United States and Venezuela. The prime minister being very close to the Venezuelan people, the government of Venezuela also facilitated discussions on reducing tensions between the United States and Venezuela. So even if we are small, we occupy a very strategic position in the world. There are two things about us. We're tiny, and that's not the one thing. One of those things is that we work together a lot. So our diplomatic behavior can be described as the movement of small fries. When there are sharks lurking by, small fries get closer together, group together, and take on mimicking behaviors that give the semblance of a large single fish. We do that in diplomatic affairs. So we have the CARICOM, which is the Caribbean Community. It's one of the oldest regional integration movements in the world, celebrating 50 years this year. And then we have a smaller organization, which is also recognized in the world as being one of the best run small organizations. That format helps us to participate and to actually have influence much more than we would have as small, tiny nations. So for example, we have 15 votes, CARICOM. That is a huge chunk. And that chunk moving in unison as one can have tremendous influence and does have tremendous influence. So that's one thing. We operate as a region, as a bloc, that gives us a great amount of influence. The second thing about us, and especially diplomacy, but also trade and other things, is that we are strategically located between East and West, between Europe and Africa to the East, the United States, South America to the West. And a lot of things, affect us in one way or the other. And a number of things we pay attention to. As a result, we participate in for better, for greater peace, but we do participate much more than our size would suggest.
Would you say that your relationship with Cuba has improved, been the same, or was, I guess got worse is the only other option after the fall of the Soviet Union?
It improved. It absolutely improved because we did not have formal relations before that period.
Okay.
Before the fall of the Soviet Union, so the Soviet Union collapsed in '89. Before the fall of the Soviet Union, we tread very, very, very carefully. So during that time, we were largely influenced by our affiliations with the United Kingdom and the United States.
Of course.
Cuba was under containment.
Yeah.
Cuba was a no-touch, no-go country. We were also run at the time by more conservative governments. Interesting fact is the Commonwealth of Dominica, acting with the United States, that's former Prime Minister Mary Eugenia Charles, inviting President Reagan to send troops, Marines, to invade Grenada. Grenada would not have happened as smoothly, quote unquote, as it did without the participation of Dominica. And interesting fact is James Baker, former Secretary of State,
sure,
has said on the record, that Dominica has contributed to the opening up of the world because Dominica inviting the United States into Grenada, as controversial as that was, did propel things that would result in the fall of the Soviet Union in the long term. So again, that's an illustration of Dominica's outsized diplomatic involvement. But to answer your question directly, this resulted, and this is linked, following the fall of the Soviet Union, the security situation in the world changed. And then the Soviet Union not existing anymore, both Cuba and the Soviet Union were perceived to pose a completely different challenge to the region and especially to the Commonwealth of Dominica. The long story short is following that period, Dominica started diplomatic relations with Cuba and in 1992. And since then, those relations have been improved. They have been deepened, they have been widened. So especially in health, we have a lot of cooperation in health, meaning we get training of Dominican students in Cuba, and we have exchange of health personnel from Cuba in the Commonwealth of Dominica. So medical diplomacy, especially, but in other areas too.
Excellent.
Short answer, we now have relations with Cuba, and they're improving.
Good. I'm sure when you made yourself available to shows such as mine, there were things that obviously you wanted to talk about. So this is sort of an open-ended question. What didn't I ask you about, or what question were you not able to turn into whatever was on your mind when you, I'm sure with the consent of your government, said, sure, do this outreach tour. So whatever it is that you wanted to talk about or mention that we didn't already do, this is a free zone.
I'm happy to tell you that you've been a great interviewer, and I have been able to express the things that I wanted to. I'll just emphasize one of the things that's really good about our region, and especially the Commonwealth of Dominica, is that we're a democracy. We're a Westminster-style parliamentary democracy, and we focus a lot on the quality of our democracy, especially the relationship between our leaders, the top leader, the top government leader, the prime minister, and the people of the Commonwealth of Dominica. And that is very, very important to us, ensuring that we maintain our diplomatic credentials and that we deepen the quality of that system. And that's something we're committed to. I'm happy to have answered the questions you did. I thoroughly enjoyed the questions and you asked and the conversation that we had.
Well, thank you for that. Now, permission to ask sort of on the fringier questions, just a few, quick fire. It won't take a lot of time, I promise.
Granted.
Okay.
Permission granted.
Do you have any sort of like local legends, like a Bigfoot type of thing?
We have too many. We have a lot. We have a lot. And we have a lot. And a number of them, we have some from the Carilago indigenous people's tradition. And we have some from the African tradition. Of course, the population of Dominica is largely of Black ancestry. And we have, of course, the indigenous people who were there before. And we have a lot of tales of various types. They are very, very scary. So it's more than just Bigfoot. We have, I'll pick for you something that will make, because I know I've listened to your show and I know your interest in some of the things.
Yeah.
There is something that would make some Dominicans a little shy. I'll take one of the most queer one of those. It is the opposite of Bigfoot. It's what is called moose. It's not a moose from Canada. It's a little man. They also call him a T-Bola.
Ooh.
A little man who is hatched from an egg, specifically a Good Friday egg that is hatched in the warmth of the armpit. And as soon as that little man is born, the person who warmed him into existence had better immediately exercise dominance over him by telling him, I am your master. And he, legend has it, will resist and say, no, I am your master. And you have to predominate over him and let him know that you are his master. And you will, after doing that, you will also command him to enter into a bottle of maybe rum or any other liquid. And that is from where he will be fed. So you must do that. He will be growing very quickly. And if you do not establish authority over him, he will grow and overpower you and wreak havoc on you. He will totally do that. Unimaginable havoc. The end of that life cycle is that when you recognize that he is growing too big, by the way, one of the things he will do for you is get gold for you. And when you have used him enough and he's on the verge of becoming uncontrollable, you will command him to go back into his bottle where he usually feeds. You will cap that bottle and you will take that bottle into a boat. You will head out into the Caribbean Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. You will turn around. You will toss that bottle over your shoulder and head back home. And while you're heading back home, you will hear all kinds of storms and cries, all sorts of pitiful pleading.
But don't turn around.
You know how this goes.
I can tell already. Right.
Don't turn around.
This is sort of like a reverse genie, but sort of like a leprechaun, but it's somehow born to you.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
We have 1,000 of those. We have 1,000 of those, I'll tell you that.
Okay, that's definitely the Garden of Doom. As is my next one. Every country, every place has UFOs. So let's just pretend that your government was making UFO disclosures. What would your local press corps, your local MUFON UFOologist, what would they be calling for disclosures about in your part of the world?
We have, except for private individuals, we have no capacity for or no interest in UFOs. The only UFO that a Dominican citizen might be interested in is the kind that flies on brooms in the night. Oh,
witches. Okay, got that. And who is your most famous pirate? Every island has the pirate that they want their island to be known for.
Yeah, I think Blackbeard is associated with Dominica. Okay. But there, so that is less well known, at least by me. There are Dominica, by the way. We do have a Pirates Point, and that's close to where I am from, Portsmouth. But a number of, if you look at the map on Dominica is volcanic. As a result, it has very sharp coastline. So it does not have the coves. If you look at Antigua, for example, and many of the coral-based islands, they have a number of indentations. Mm-hmm. And so, many more ports, many more areas for hiding. But I'll tell you something. We have participated in some of the greatest naval battles in the world. And so there's a Rodney. You would recognize Admiral Rodney, the British admiral. He did something amazing on Dominica. He was involved in a battle, and there's a rock that is a little away from the coast. And of course, it was in the last century or 2 centuries ago. He put on lanterns and candles and other things on that rock, and the opposing ship thought that this was a ship, and they emptied all of the ammunition on that rock. So there's Rodney's Rock, and there is also the Battle of the Saints, which is also big in military naval history. Took place because of its geometric formations. The Battle of the Saints takes place just a few miles off Dominica, and that is famous also in naval history. There are people who pay a lot of attention to those things. But so Dominica has a great tradition of that, maybe more so than Pirates. But we did Pirates. We hosted Pirates of the Caribbean.
Excellent. Yeah, I know Blackbeard was big on St. Thomas, or so they claimed. Anyway.
Yes.
I thank you so much for entertaining me with a little bit of the fringier stuff. As I said, if you ever want to come on Garden of Doom and talk about those local legends, wherever they were imported from or amalgamated from, I'm happy to do it. You can take off your ambassador hat. You can give a fake name. I don't care. But yeah, I thank you so much for the serious conversation as well. It's very interesting to hear perspectives from other places around the world, especially, from not all my listeners are obviously in the U.S., but I'm in the U.S., so, one of our neighbors to the south. It's great to hear your perspectives and just learn about your nation and your system of government and sort of your role and your concerns in the world. And it's I think it's great that your country can sort of set itself up as a honest broker, sort of neutral arbitrator or mediator in certain things. And I certainly hope that if there's any bankers or hotel chains or resorts or cruise lines or energy companies or anyone else that's looking for a place to, that has fertile ground for investment, consider Dominica. You can talk to Ambassador Aaron, I'm sure, the finance minister or whomever.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, again, I thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. And folks, thank you for listening. Research Dominica, take a look into it. Ambassador, do you want to give out your socials, or is there any website that people should look at?
Yes. Oh, thanks for that. Yes, thanks for that. So there's Dr. Philbert Aaron .com is my site, independent site, drphilbertaaron.com. And that's DrPhilbertAaron. So drphilbertaaron.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Just Dr. Philbert Aaron. Thanks for that. I really had a great time talking with you, Jeff.
Likewise. You're welcome back anytime. All right. Well, thank you. And folks, hope you enjoyed the show. I think that you did. And give us a rating, a review, and a referral. And I think that we're going to get a lot more listens in Dominica. So, and maybe the Caribbean writ large. So cool. And maybe I can parlay that into a vacation and claim it's a business expense or something. All right, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening.
Nou ka représente la Jinping. People come well just for the cultural gala, yes. Time to show our cultural heritage as we face one another era of culture, yes. We could demonstrate our bouillon taste. Dress up in their work to yet, dress up in their tête cassette, telling Kotoko to ring. People say, oh gosh, who are we? When we say Tim Basek, that means we give full respect to our culture heritage, regardless of color, creed, or age. Ha! Boy. Hey, night. Epa! Luka batabula tu boma. Luka wule tabula tu boma. Bakite musique la champenu. Luka batabula tu boma. Lang pang pang patang tang tang tang. Rang pang pang patang la tang tang. Yay. Yep. Tim this one bell like what we in November. Is all of them things people looking for. London, States, Canada, people from all over. We'll be here for the cultural gala. Well, I'm with the camera. From the place taking picture. Memories of crystal water. To show to their friends and the neighbors. because there's no other time like this. So this one you cannot miss. Put yourself in the action. Come give full participation. Look at Batabula to Bonma. Look at Wule Tabula to Bonma. Bakite music la chapelu. Look at Batabula to Leju. Lang pang pang patang tang tang tang. Rang pang pang palaka laka tang tang. Look at the moon. Dancing. Look at the people. Dancing lady. Yeah. Ay, ay, ay. Look at Batabula to Bonma. Look at Wule Tabula to Bonma. Bakite music la champelu. Look at Batabula to Bonma. Lam pang pang patang pang pang pang. Rang pang pang patagala katang tang. Rang pang pang patang tang tang tang. Lang pang pang patagala katang tang. Yeah. Contigo be. Blow the boots.
Ça c'est calme,
Blow six-pan.
ça c'est gros coco.
Blow show. Adaka. Tim Tim. Eh ben, il était ni un madame. Il était ni trois garçons.